Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield audio podcast.
So I want to do a different kind of podcast this week. I am sitting on a beautiful porch, basically in Savannah, Georgia, state I was born in. And sitting with me as my guest on this podcast is the lovely Mrs. Mansfield, Beverly Darnall Mansfield. We are just enjoying the unbelievably steamy, palm tree-ridden, amazing wilds of Tybee Island. And I wanted to take a moment to do this unusual podcast because I get a certain question so many times when I travel that I thought Bev would be great to help me answer it. Many people who feel like they have books in them, who feel like they have a family story, who maybe have a company story or a military story, or even just have a period of history they want to explore, or some aspect of industry they want to write about, or maybe some aspect of politics. They just don't feel like they have the time. They don't feel like they have the game. In other words, the writing ability. They don't think they could do the research. And there are companies, there are organizations that take care of that need. And the reason I want to make sure that we get this on this podcast is that many of you are just in that category. You're leaders. You have a story. You have something in your heart. You've got something you want to write. And you don't have to do it alone. There are firms that will help you get your story told. And Beverly runs such a company. It's called Chartwell Literary Group. She's the executive director, and I'm really grateful that she is here to chat with you about this kind of company in the publishing world. Bev, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here.
Now, Bev, this is unknown to most people. Most people assume a writer writes. They assume that a publisher then buys the manuscript. They assume the publisher publishes it. But in today's world where there is so much variety, so many different ways to get a manuscript out there into the world, I mean, this kind of service that you provide is pretty huge. It's pretty valuable. It's pretty helpful. Means that, you know, a guy who's just an executive in a firm but got a great story can get it written through a company like yours and get it out to the world. So why don't you describe what it is that you do, what it is Chartwell Literary Group does, and how it fits a need or a gap in the market.
Okay. Chartwell facilitates publishing projects in all kinds of stages. So there may be the little tiny stage where somebody needs some small thing written, or a publisher needs everything from a chapter edited to back cover copy edited, all the way up to the person that just has the idea, is too busy to get the idea onto paper, or doesn't know how to get started. So Chartwell provides that service, any of those services, anything from the very small to the very big.
Now, most people think of what you're describing as ghostwriting, and that might even have some questionable connotation in their mind. How do you distinguish what you do from just the narrow function of ghostwriting? And while you're at it, why don't you talk a little bit about the ethics of using quote-unquote ghostwriters?
That's a great question, and I get it a lot. Ghostwriting, yeah, there's the part of publishing a lot of people don't think about, which is that when they think of ghostwriting, they think somebody has just written a book, put somebody else's name on it. But that's not really what we do anyway. There are people who, for whatever reason, need the book written, but sometimes they don't even know how to use a computer. And sometimes more common is the person who really is just not a writer. And they tell us the entire story, and we put it into readable form and give it back to them, and it's a joint team effort between us and them. We don't do books where we just sell a manuscript to someone and they get to stamp their name on it. But we do have a beautiful experience with most of our clients where we are able to say, is this what you meant to say? Yes, no, I'll rewrite that. And it's a going back and forth process for us.
Now, you've worked with people at every level of society, every level of fame, but name some of the more prominent ones that you've worked with so people get some sense that, these are not lazy slugs who just are wanting to stick their name on somebody else's work. They've got a story to tell. They might not have had time or the ability to tell it at that era, but these are serious people with serious messages.
Well, the truth is, if you look at the New York Times bestseller list, a lot of those people had help writing their book. And believe me, as the reader, you're glad they did. Writing is a very, very specialized skill. It takes years and a lot of talent to get good at it. So we've helped Marsha Blackburn, the congressman from Tennessee. She wrote a book about women and how women should use what they already have to get forward in life. It's called Life Equity. We helped another congressman, Michael Burgess from Texas, to write a book on health care. Again, these are very much joint processes, where they write something and give it to us and we help them smooth it. We helped Amy Grant with her memoir called Mosaic. We also do audiobooks. So we've done George Foreman's audiobook that is, got a person to read his audiobook, and Mr. Foreman read the intro. Sometimes that's how that goes. Of course, we do a lot of things with a lot of different levels. A lot of our clients are confidential arrangements where they really would like for people to, for the mystery to remain intact, and we're happy to make that happen too.
And I just know from watching from the outside, you've done healthcare CEOs, you've done New York Times bestselling authors, you've done TV personalities, you've done major ministers who are writing serious books, you've done all kinds of people. And I don't mind saying that you've helped me. When I do a book, I might not know every aspect of what I need to know for that book as far as research is concerned. I mean, I've written every word I've ever published, but Chartwell has been used to do research. It's been used to bring in specialists. It's been used to edit. It's been used to handle the PR side of things. Photographs. So the photographs, absolutely. Matter of fact, Chartwell handled the photography on my Lincoln book, and that was why people just went crazy for it when they read the book. Now, what I'm intrigued by is how you team people up around an author or a personality. So let's say I'm a very famous, very wealthy day trader, which is, as you well know, it's my wife, laughable. But let's say that I am. And let's say I decide I want to write a book, but I'm too busy jetting around the world in my G5 to get around to writing that book. But I do know stuff. I do know my stuff. Somehow you've got to get that story out of me, and you might have to do some supplemental research. How does that work? How do you team people around me who get that job done?
Well, as a matter of fact, I am discussing a book with someone right now who is an investment specialist, and so that's a timely question. In this case, what I would do is I have to the very first most important step is to find an interviewer that can go and interview you, the day trader, at your convenience, and ask the right questions. The interviewing is also a specialized skill. And so I find the person. I know I have a lot of people that I know that do this kind of thing. They spend a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever it takes to get the story. What is it this person wants to tell, number one? And what are the aspects of what they're telling that they don't consider valuable, I know are valuable? And get those things out of. So the first step is finding the right interviewer. Now, the right interviewer may very well not be the right writer. And so at that point, we start to create a table of contents. We create a summary of what's in the book. We go back and forth with the author to say, is this truly what you want to talk about? And is there something we've left out? And now that you've read this, or would you like to not put in the part about your ex-sister-in-law? We start to fine-tune what's the book about. And then we assign a primary writer to that job. And the writer starts to turn in chapters to us on a schedule. Usually a chapter, at the most 2 at a time. And we start to go back and forth with this usually very busy person. And by the way, we are very busy too, and so the schedule matters. We go back and forth, we fine-tune these chapters, and usually that entire process takes somewhere between 3 and 6, maybe 8 months.
So you work with the author, because the person whose story it is always retains the title author, no matter who's putting words on the page. You work with the author, and that's sometimes a confidential process. And then do you then sell that project to a publisher? Is that what you do?
No, that's just the beginning of all the writing. Of course, I won't go into the minutia of how we edit after that, get this thing done, organized correctly. In the meantime, the author, whose name's on the book and whose story it is getting other things done, like endorsements, people who will speak for them on the back of the book, that kind of thing. So we get the whole manuscript ready. It's all electronic, by the way. We don't do typewriters or anything like that. And then our job is not to sell this to a publisher. We can give advice about that. We can point them to publishers we believe might be interested in their book. But I will say this. In this day and age, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of people who never take their book to a publisher. So if they have a platform, if they know that they have a board, a family, a podcast audience, a television audience, they have already written a book, they have readers, fans, whatever. They have people who are going to buy this book. Many times they will publish it themselves. And these days, those books don't look any different. They are beautiful, can be done in quantities that you can handle financially, and many people self-publish. If the author doesn't want to do that, or sometimes they already have a deal with a publisher, but let's say they don't, we'll give them advice about that, but we are not in charge of getting that book published.
So your total role is to produce the manuscript with the author. You don't agent it, meaning you don't sell it to publishers. You don't have any percentage of it or any financial payment from its sale or the deal with the publisher and so on. Is that right? That's
right. It's a very clean deal. We create the best manuscript possible. The author is in charge of what happens then. Sometimes they go and find an agent. Sometimes, like I say, they already have a deal. Sometimes it's just a no-brainer that a publisher would want to do this, and we point them in that direction and leave it. But we make nothing off of the book after we get paid to write or help them write it. And by the way, the writing of the book sometimes is as simple a process as the book. They are a writer. Maybe this person is a writer, and they need other eyes on it. Maybe they are a writer, but they don't know it. They've written some things, and the thing really is very close to finished. So we don't always start from scratch.
So you can, what you're saying is that you basically can pick up an author at whatever level they might find themselves. Fair writer, not great writer, have a great story, don't have the research, et cetera, et cetera. You just simply plug into them, so to speak, wherever, with whatever help they might need. Maybe they have a completed manuscript, they need it edited. Maybe they wrote a book about their experience in World War II, but they're not totally sure about the munitions or the exact geography or, what the Pentagon says about where those units were and that kind of thing. And so you come around that writer, either writing the entire thing for them or picking them up at whatever level they might need some help. Is that a fair summary?
That is. And also I would mention that most people don't know what they really are. They don't know much about the book business. The same way, I don't know much about the energy business or, real estate or something. It's not their field. So what we start with at the very beginning is a nice conversation. Do you need to be writing a book? Where's your audience? Who do you see as the reader? All kinds of questions like that. And wherever they find themselves, we can help them.
Well, I appreciate you telling us all these details because most of the people who listen to my podcast are people who are aware of story. They are, well-read people. They're people who care about what's going on in the world. And many of them are leaders in some form, and others just simply value story. And so they may have things they want to say. And the reason I wanted to do this podcast is I wanted folks to understand that the fact that they themselves are not, Hemingway, or the fact that they may not have time, or the fact that they may not know every detail about the story they want to recount, maybe about their own community during a storm or anything like that, does not mean the story can't be told. We live in an age in which anyone can have their story told and put into the right form by somebody who's a professional at it. And this is important to me, not just as a matter of business, although of course I work with Bev in this wonderful work of Chartwell Literary Group, but I want to see families telling their stories and passing those manuscripts on to the next generation. They may never take a form more than mimeographed sheets, but at least someone's written it in moving language, done the research, and this family is enhanced by it. I've also seen families do, print leather-bound copies for all of its members, and it changes the family to know its heritage, its history. Many of us have got uncles, grandparents who fought in major wars, and those stories are going to die with them, but there are people who can tell those stories. And then, of course, there are all sorts of leaders and executives, and maybe, one of the most moving stories I've read recently was by a soccer mom who lived for years as a happy mother, but had been raped in high school and wanted to tell that story, and it was powerful. So don't think you have to be famous. Don't think you have to have some story that ended up on NBC News. Just know that the power of the written word is available to you through a lot of firms like this. Bev, if you could just tell us your website so people who maybe might want to reach you can. And I really appreciate you being here today.
So you want me to give them your mobile phone number? That's
what I want you to do, is tell them how to call me.
Oh, okay. Our website is www.chartwellliterary.com.
chartwellliterary.com. That means you'll have 3 L's in a row. chartwellliterary.com. And of course, you can always reach any of the people that we interview or talk to on this podcast through info@stephenmansfield.tv.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular speaker, and a frequent faith and culture commentator on Fox and CNN. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and The Miracle of the Kurds. His new book is Ask the Question: Why We Must Demand Religious Clarity from Our Presidential Candidates, available on Amazon. Learn more about Stephen at stephenmansfield.tv. The Stephen Mansfield podcast is directed by Isaac Darnall, who also wrote, produced, and performed the podcast theme song. This is a Chartwell Literary Group production.